Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. My name is Doug Brown, and I am your host for today. I'm your host for every episode. I've never had another host, but we have guests, and today our guest is Kevin Cooke, who is he's the product manager for Stratusphere, a solution from a company called Liquidware. So if you might know them as Liquidware Labs, but they recently changed their names at Synergy timeframe, May-ish, to just Liquidware, and they're one of my favorite companies. So I'm really excited about this. It's Stratusphere was just released. It's a major release, 6.0. So it's a mature product, major release, new. And we're going to hear all about that. So with no further ado, let's just jump into my interview with Kevin Cooke from Liquidware. Okay, Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with me. It's nice to have you back on the show. I guess we recorded a podcast that never saw the light of day. Is that my fault or what?
Oh, who knows? Technology, right?
Yeah, I'm going to blame it on technology. That's my out. It's the technology's fault. So
it was, we'll blame this one on the cloud.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we're going to blame it on. So I'm really looking forward to having you back on and talking about, of course, Liquidware and Stratusphere and what have you. So that being said, for those who might not know you, who are you and what do you do over at Liquidware?
Thanks, Doug. No, awesome. So my name is Kevin Cooke. I am product director for Stratusphere Solutions at Liquidware. Been here a handful of years now, and really focused on end user experience and broadly visibility as it relates to end user computing or workspaces or physical PCs or frankly whatever we want to call it. But we all sit in front of these devices with keyboards. In some cases, they're physical PCs. In some cases, they're workspaces in the cloud. In some cases, they're VDI. But ultimately, I'm charged with and really very passionate about how do we provide the metrics and the details to make sure that we're delivering those workspaces, meeting user expectations, meeting user experience, and broadly minimizing risk in the delivery.
Awesome. And you guys have a great solution, and we're going to talk about you have a new version coming out, so we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, in case someone's not familiar with Liquidware, can you tell us who is Liquidware? You used to be called Liquidware Labs, which I still make the mistake, and I think you guys do constantly, right? Every time I talk to Jason Smith, he makes it, which I like to give him a little bit of grief about that. But so maybe you can talk about the name change, about what you guys do beyond Stratusphere and just the company in general.
Certainly. So, a bit of a hard habit to break. We've been around since 2009. Liquidware broadly is focused on the delivery of user experience on workspaces. Early on, that message was really about bolstering and supporting the virtual desktop. But, broadly, as you look at the market, as you look at the platform vendors, it's really all about workspaces, period, full stop, right? People are using different workspaces throughout the day. People are transferring between. It may be a one-time migration. It may be just based on the day of the week. And so, as a company, we're focused on how do you deliver the best user experience on those workspaces while at the same time minimizing the operations, minimizing the overhead, making it easier for the guys behind the curtain to deliver on the promise of what we all expect. We've become I kind of call it the McDonald's-fication of desktops, right? We want it now, we want it quick, and we just don't really care what kind of device we're using, where we're using it, how we're using it, how it's being delivered. There's sort of an increasing expectation. Liquidware has been focused really from the onset on how do we deliver tools to do that. And we do that in three key areas. You talked about Stratusphere, and we'll dig into that a little bit more in depth. Stratusphere is about visibility, not necessarily taking direct action on the environment, but how do we provide the metrics and the information to allow you to ultimately manage that user life cycle, regardless of the device they're on, and then how do you sort of quantify some nebulous concept of user experience to make it meaningful when you're designing, when you're migrating, when you're managing, when you're onboarding, when you're looking at apps, when you're looking at inventory, right? All of the things that we do in terms of managing the life cycle of an end user device. The other two products we're not going to talk about today, but I'm sure your listeners can certainly go through the archives, and we may be chatting with my compadre Jason Smith at some point. But we also have a focus on user experience management, the profile, the persona, right? All of the things that make that PC personal for an individual. And then lastly, the third component is application delivery and a product that we have that really facilitates delivering applications in a way that's very dynamic, that's very just in time, but with very, very little overhead, with very, very little management. Broadly, with the category would be referred to as application layering, not to be confused with application isolation or application streaming or server-based streaming, but application layering, where that application appears completely native to the local operating system, but in fact is delivered with all of the efficiencies and low operational overhead that we all, from an IT perspective, have come to expect.
Very cool, very cool. And yeah, we just did a podcast not long ago with Jason and with the Jasons, right? Jason Maddox and Jason Smith. So
awesome.
If you guys are listening, you did not hear that podcast, definitely go back and they'll talk about everything that everything that Kevin just talked about. So and much more. In detail, right? So, but today we want to talk about Stratusphere. You guys just had 6.0 drop. So, can you talk a bit about, first of all, maybe a little bit about what is Stratusphere? Give us the, the good overview of that, and then talk about what's new in 6.0.
Absolutely. So Stratusphere is an end user experience monitoring and diagnostic solution. It is a user-centric or user point of view oriented look at how things are performing, how things are behaving inside of the workspace. I'll differentiate that from more infrastructure-centric tools that your listeners may be familiar with. We'll just call out a couple of sort of platform vendors. So Director from our good friends at Citrix and VROPS from our good friends at VMware. These are both what I would deem infrastructure-centric. They're looking at the back-end infrastructure, and then you drill down into an individual user or an individual session. And the amount of information and the detail of that information is going to be somewhat different, but from a navigation standpoint, you're talking about what I would refer to as an outside-in view. Stratusphere captures all of that same information. In fact, we have connectors to grab all of the same information from those platform vendors and bring it in to Stratusphere and time correlate it with an in-guest view. We have an extremely lightweight agent. We call it a SID key or connector ID key, and we capture information inside the guest. What's interesting and unique about Stratusphere is we did that for all of the machines, all of the applications, and all of the users all of the time. That gives us the ability to trend that information, to help unearth and showcase cycles of information, to basically sort of help an IT organization find those needles in a haystack. Right? Now, don't just tell me that I have a problem with a single machine when it blinks red on the screen. I can go back almost in TiVo-like fashion and say, yeah, it looks like it started last Thursday. Everybody in the accounting group was affected. And as I pull back and look at this information slightly in a slightly different manner, I can see that it's affecting everyone using this application in this geography. So it's a way to capture and leverage those user experience based metrics, but present them in a way that's very, very meaningful and impactful to be able to trend. And that's supported by IT functions such as assessing, onboarding users, diagnosing users, monitoring users, checking the health proactively of users, right? There's a number of different steps, and I talked about it earlier in terms of the end user life cycle. if you look at IT functions, and from a siloed standpoint, most IT professionals would agree with these statements, that we as IT professionals have always looked at specific things like assessing for virtual desktop infrastructure as a sort of a siloed project. We'd go in, we'd assess the data, we'd use that to look at all of the information and relevant consumption metrics to be able to build the server infrastructure, or the storage infrastructure, or the network infrastructure to support things like VDI. Similarly, we, from time to time, we go through and assess and do things like, an application inventory. Tell me all the different versions of Chrome I have in my environment as a means to clean up and ultimately fix my application strategy. Or I've got users who are complaining about login speed. I've got users that are complaining about GPU use because I've got an application that's consuming a lot of GPU or CPU that's providing a virtual GPU. But ultimately, all of these things touch the user, right? And whether you're doing a Citrix project, whether you're doing an Active Directory project to fix login, whether you're looking at replacing all of the PCs with something with a little bit more GPU horsepower, traditionally IT thinks of those as individual projects. I would challenge you and challenge everyone here listening to this podcast to think about how all of those things touch an individual user, right? Ultimately, if you make the user the common thread through that entire exercise, it's a life cycle, right? We go through these cycles where you onboard applications, you onboard users, you change hardware infrastructure, you do all kinds of things. But from a user's perspective, that's a set of challenges and things that become very, very impactful and very meaningful to that user, specifically in terms of meeting their user experience expectations, delivering the performance that they expect, and ultimately minimizing and mitigating any risk in that change management process. Stratusphere is the tool broadly and the visibility engine to support that type of exercise. And with Stratusphere 6, we've kind of turned it up to 11, right? We in Spinal Tap fashion, we've really increased some of those capabilities to make that visibility broadly available to much larger organizations in a much more distributed fashion. That's the net of Stratusphere 6.0.
Very cool, very cool. And you guys have a whole new architecture. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So with Stratusphere 6, what we've done is we've moved to a more distributed architecture. This supports a number of different things, and this is important for a number of different reasons. But broadly, what we've done is twofold. Previously, all of those in-guest agents were collected by a functional piece of equipment or a functional device within the Stratusphere architecture called the Hub appliance. And all of these are virtual appliances, Doug. They're not. There's no physical machines or putty-colored boxes that you're going to install. All of our stuff is essentially delivered as a virtual appliance. But with the new architecture, what we've done is we've moved and distributed the collection of all of our in-guest connector ID keys. We've moved it away from this centralized hub, and we've now moved it out and pushed it out to a new appliance that we call the collector appliance. These collector appliances can be distributed wherever you'd like. We'd recommend that you put one minimally in each data center. In fact, you can create redundant pairs of collector appliances so that we now have redundancy in our ability to collect those connector ID keys in such a way that they're highly available and fault tolerant. If a connector ID key or a database in one of those virtual appliances becomes unavailable, the next one in the group simply picks up the slack, and our connector ID keys continue to report in to the next member in the overall group architecture. So it's about distributing the ability to collect the SID traffic. It's about more making those collection devices more highly available, and at the same time, because we've offloaded some of the resources from the hub, we now increase overall the scale and increase overall the performance of the environment while being able to serve much larger environments at the same time.
Very cool. How about additional application level visibility? You've increased that too. Can you explain, one, what that means, and two, what you've added?
So, Doug, in terms of applications, Stratusphere has always been focused on the ability to collect information about individual applications. And when I say, information, it's everything from tell me the versions of apps, tell me how often they're run, tell me by whom they are run, tell me all the resources that are consumed when those applications are run. Right? There's a host of different things that we collect. With Stratusphere 6. We've increased really two areas that support application strategy and support application GPU types of metrics. From an application strategy standpoint, we have information on elevation, so we can look and detect processes and applications that are being run within an environment that perhaps have elevated privileges. This becomes really important if you're looking to lock down your environment from a security standpoint, or you've got applications perhaps that aren't behaving well. Maybe they're written poorly and are elevating components within the environment that you're not aware of. So we've got details such as elevated privileges. But we also have added a bunch of application strategy methodology and application strategy reporting. So now we can look at applications and determine their complexity. Is an application requiring specific COM or DCOM objects? Does an application require DLLs? Does an application require other complex things that may make it difficult or challenging if you are looking to deliver those applications in different ways, right? So maybe you want to pull an application out of a gold image. Maybe you don't want it to run natively on an individual PC or in an individual VM. You're looking to isolate. You're looking to stream through RDSH or perhaps XenApp, or you're looking to leverage a technology like our own FlexApp to be able to layer a technology atop your virtual desktop. Stratusphere 6 will provide reports that will help you to determine the complexity and perhaps how easy or how challenging it might be for you to virtualize specific applications and deliver them in a different way. Very exciting, for us because certainly it'll help customers and help the market in general to better command their application strategies overall, and not simply throw everything in one big tarball and deliver it as a single golden image, but instead give you really great information and great insight to be able to look at different delivery approaches and really refine your application strategy and ultimately lower your cost to deliver.
You got it. And 6.0 supports additional clients, right? Or added client support. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. One thing though I want to mention about apps before we get off the app
please.
Top. So we've been working with NVIDIA for over a year now, and about a year ago, in fact, it was not at this past VMworld, but the VMware previously, we added application level GPU metrics, or I should say machine level GPU metrics from NVIDIA and their grid card. So for anybody who's looking at grid types of metrics for a GPU or virtual GPU pass through in your VMs, we were able to look and aggregate information at a machine level within Stratusphere. With 6.0, we've really pulled back the covers quite a bit, and in working with NVIDIA, we now have access to APIs to get that same level of detail, but down to the individual application and individual process. So now it's not just about GPU level metrics for the machine, but it's about GPU metrics down to individual applications, down to individual processes. Again, cool. Profoundly exciting and really, really helpful for those who are looking to determine things like, should I size an application based on consolidating it, right? I want to deliver an app via Zen desktop or Zen application, Zen app, and I don't know what the overall utilization of my individual pods is going to need to look like. We can tell you what that is for RAM, for CPU, for IOPS and storage types of metrics, and now we can do the same for GPU when run with an NVIDIA-based GPU process. We also do it for non-NVIDIA, but for those that are in the NVIDIA camp, we are tapping directly into the NVIDIA API. So very exciting stuff there.
Very cool. Is that unique to Liquidware?
It's not unique to Liquidware. It's an API or an SDK that NVIDIA has opened up to everyone in the market. But what is different and what's going to be unique ultimately is how that information is exposed and how that information is presented. So, I go back to the sort of the example I presented before. If you're using a VROPS or a director, you're going to see that information more from an outside in, from a host-centric point of view. Again, there's nothing wrong with that information. However, if you wanted to see what that looked like every day for the last 30 days between the hours of 12 and 1, or what does that look like for just the accounting department, or what does that look like every Thursday for the last 8 Thursdays, you can't do that with an infrastructure-centric or outside-in view of this kind of information. Sure. So while we'll have the same metrics available, the uniqueness is how we present it. And, Stratusphere's secret sauce, if you will, is looking at it from the user's point of view, looking at it from the in-guest perspective, but at the same time being able to aggregate it across different populations, different groups, different application use cases, different hosts, right? Different anything that we expose in any of the metrics or column basis that we build our tables within the Stratusphere appliances can be used to search, to sort, to filter, and ultimately to trend information. So the presentation of the data is going to be very, very different. The data points themselves are the same. They all come from the same API. They all come from the same SDK that's been exposed to us from the great folks at NVIDIA.
Very cool, very cool. And about back to new client support.
Yeah, absolutely. So very excited, and this I think, Doug, will make you really happy as a Mac user. Stratusphere 6 is going to add Apple OS support. So we will have a native in-guest agent for OS X and El Capitan, and we'll have a Mac OS Sierra and newer based client to capture, frankly, all of the same metrics that we can do for PCs. We'll now be able to capture for Macintosh as well. We've always done Linux. Certainly not something that we encounter a lot in the enterprise space. But we do the same for Linux-based environments, and with Stratusphere 6, we're adding Mac OS-based clients. So we're really excited about that. The other client support that we've got in Stratusphere 6 is native support now for Microsoft Server 2016. It sounds so weird to say 2016, as we're just creeping up on 2018, but I guess that's the way the Microsoft naming machine crumbles, so to speak. But we've got Microsoft Server 2016 and some additional things that we're doing with some zero and thin clients. So we're working with iGel, we're working with LG and others to provide metrics for zero and thin clients as well in Stratusphere 6.0. So some really great things coming down the pipe here as we get Stratusphere 6 out into the marketplace.
Okay, well, that sounds great, Kevin. So that's so many new things. Is there anything else within the product that that you would like to mention, or?
A couple other things, Doug. We're getting kind of towards the bottom end of the list. We've got in our advanced inspectors, we're going to add the ability to look at a trace route with ping and jitter, for examples.
Cool.
Yeah. So so for those folks who are leveraging remote PCs or are concerned that the physical network layer may be contributing to poor user experience, for cloud, for example, one of the concerns we often hear is it's great to move my desktops in the cloud, but my users are still sitting behind a keyboard down here on in the real world. How do I make sure the last mile, so to speak, is not contributing in some way? So with Traceroute, and we'll do this a number of different ways, you can install one of our connector ID keys in the VM, in which case we will automatically do a downstream traceroute back to the end client. The second way that we'll also support this is you can put one of our connector ID keys down at the end client, and we'll do a traceroute upstream to the back-end infrastructure. So, for the network geeks out there, I'm sure everybody realizes that a traceroute is not necessarily the same from source to destination as it is from destination to source when you're looking at it the other way. So we provide both of those options, which is kind of cool. Stratusphere 6.0 is going to natively support vSphere 6.5. So for those of you who have moved forward and done that, we've got support natively for the newest hypervisor from our good friends at VMware. We're going to have a common access card, sometimes called CAC support. So for those in the military or highly paranoid enterprises where you've got those physical token or chip-based identification cards and you use those to log in, we're going to support CAC login and authentication for the Stratusphere appliance itself. Again, there's little minor things that we're going to have along the way, but I think we've hit all of the high notes.
Cool. Believe it or not, I love reading, of course, the change list and what have you. But I've always found that the smaller things, the big things are, of course, really cool, right? But some of those small ones, someone will be like, oh, man, this is what I've been looking forward to, or this solves this problem, right? It might not be big, but it's really big for them. That's why I asked the question. So,
yeah, no, guilty. I read release notes too. It sounds really geeky to say it out loud, but I'm guilty.
Come on, everyone here. If you're listening to this podcast, I bet you like release notes, right? Change logs. That's the word I was looking for. The change log. So, yeah. And the list of bug fixes is always good. I won't ask you that question. Hey, which bugs did you fix? Well, we fixed the bug with, air trap, whatever. So, so 6.0 is a major release. Does this affect the upgrade? What's it like to upgrade? Is it just a simple process? Anything tricky? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it should be straightforward. I hesitate to handle it here on the call because it
Sure.
will vary based on what you've currently got deployed. Certainly reach out to us. We're going to have all kinds of knowledge-based articles on our support site. If you're working with one of our amazing SEs in the field, certainly those guys can help you. Feel free to reach out to me. I suspect my contact information will be in the header for this podcast. But broadly, it'll be about the same as any other deployment. Again, as I said, we're going to have a brand new appliance called a collector appliance. So certainly you'll need to deploy those new collector appliances. And then, make sure if you are interested in preserving data, we'll have a data migration from the old hub to the new hub. But, nothing really difficult. What we found is the hardest part about installing our product is sort of downloading the images. That's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying it's not hard.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's really not hard for us to deploy and roll out Stratusphere. We've our development team and the folks on our QA side have really made it super, super easy to install Stratusphere. I think the as I said somewhat jokingly, the hardest things are typically getting the large download files down local and being patient to have some couple few days of data in the database to make it meaningful and make it trendable. Just because you've got Stratusphere running for an hour, you've only got an hour's worth of information. It becomes more powerful as that information gets aggregated over time. So nothing out of the ordinary, Doug, in terms of moving from our 5.x architecture to our 6.0 architecture.
Okay. And you had mentioned, the trickiest part is getting it. So, what does someone need to do if they want to, one, learn more about it, two, actually get their hands on the bits? Let's say they're not a customer. If they're a customer, I imagine they know where to find it. But if they're not and they want to try it out, what do they need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, certainly the easiest and best place is to just hit our website, www.liquidware.com. We have a download page where you can download and take a look at it. We've got test drives available. So certainly if you reach out to myself or you reach out to our sales at liquidware.com email address, requesting a 25 pack, we can make a 25 license count available for folks to try out really all of our products, Stratusphere, as well as Profile Unity and FlexApp. And lastly, certainly working through, if you're working with a reseller partner or you're working through a major platform vendor, we have relationships with all of those guys too. So there's a number of different ways to get access to the latest and greatest from us.
Perfect. And there's other guys out there doing what you guys do. So I have to ask and I want to ask the competition question, especially since you have a new release and everything. So how do you stack up against the other boys doing what you guys are doing, boys and girls doing what you guys are doing?
It's a great question. I'm actually asked that question a fair bit. I think the answer is really twofold. One, for anybody that's used us, and for anybody that has installed Stratusphere in particular and looked at Stratusphere in particular, that we just have a lot of really great information. So the depth of information, the way that we present that information, the way that we help and enable you to make that information actionable is just bar none a cut above all of the rest. And again, I'm certainly biased, right? So take that for what it's worth. But I challenge you to just compare us. We make available that 25 pack so that you can see how that's going to run in your own environment. I think from a market perspective, though, we've seen, and this is really interesting to me, we've seen a lot of sort of consolidation in the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, just about every one of our competitors, more so in the app layering and user environment management space, but we've seen, most of our traditional competitors have been gobbled up by either a platform vendor or, a large multi-conglomerate with, in many cases, not so stellar results as it relates to the value to the end customer. Either you've lost the team that you had been working with previously, or it's just become one small feature in a much larger platform type of environment. I guess what I would say is this: we are now, I believe, the only completely platform agnostic, completely no ties to any platform vendor. If you look at a solution from a VMware, you look at a solution from a Citrix, good luck using that same solution if you run a heterogeneous environment, right? How many folks run only VMware technologies, right? They may use VMware for their VDI, and then they use Zen app for their application streaming, and they've still got physical PCs. Are they supposed to use 3 different tools to manage that environment? It's kind of a ridiculous answer, in my opinion. We are completely platform agnostic. If you run Windows-based workloads, we will give you a persistent view, regardless of whose platform you use. We're not dependent on any of those platforms. We don't even need to support. We don't only exclusively support the virtualization vendors. We have quite a few of our customers, Doug, who are using us for physical PCs only, or as a migration from physical into one of those virtual types of solutions. So, I guess my somewhat shorter answer is there's a lot of power in being truly agnostic, in being truly independent, and as the market overall has grown, our percentage or slice of that market has grown as well. So we're very, very happy with the way things have fleshed out in the marketplace as of late, and we could not be more pleased with our solutions and where we sit in this marketplace.
Well, that sounds great. So on that note, Kevin, do you have any last parting thoughts on the EUC market in general? You mentioned some of the consolidation going on in your space, but anything else, in DaaS, cloud world, that's definitely coming, and a lot of buzz around those two subjects.
Yeah, we talked a bit about the EUC market and a lot of the consolidation, sort of switching gears. I'm really bullish and I'm really excited about some of the very large players in the cloud world. I'll just mention Amazon. We're doing some amazing things with those folks and supporting their DaaS platform and their DaaS environment, and bringing all of the same attributes and all of the same value that we have from a physical PC, from an on-premises virtual or server-based delivery. We're bringing all of those same things to the cloud vendors and the cloud providers. We're available in most of their marketplaces, and we are working to fully integrate. In most cases, we support all of their hypervisors, so you can install all of our solutions up natively in those cloud environments and run them exclusively in those cloud environments. And lastly, you'll see us in early 2018 fully support their licensing. So if you're buying, for example, in Amazon desktops by the hour, you'll be able to get visibility with Stratusphere and pay for it by the hour in the same way. So we're fully integrating our technologies into their platforms to be able to deliver the same visibility and the same overall broad attributes to those marketplaces. That aside, we're just seeing a tremendous uptick in folks that are looking to move some of their UC workspaces up into the cloud. It's I'm certainly not going to say this is the year of DAS, right? How many years did we say this is the year of VDI? No, this is the year of VDI. No, wait, this is the year of VDI. But certainly we're seeing a tremendous uptick, both from the client's side in terms of a need and a desire, and from the robustness and the feature sets and the things that we're seeing come from the cloud vendors to meet that need. So very exciting times ahead. I think it's become an extremely viable and cost-effective solution, and certainly we're going to be there to support the lifecycle management of those devices, regardless of whether they're physical, on-premises, virtual, or DAS.
I'm glad you brought up Amazon, because I firmly have a friend that went to, a guy I know within the industry that recently went to Workspaces, or Amazon Workspaces, and I told him, I was like, out of anyone that's gone to a company recently, I'm most jealous of you. Not that I'm jealous, I'm happy what I do and what have you. But I mean, it's I just think that Workspaces is sort of the future, and I think that in the end, it's going to be, Amazon and Microsoft, and Google will have their cloud and what have you. But the Microsoft companies will do the Microsoft, and everyone else will do Amazon. And what's interesting about Workspaces is it's not like a Citrix product where, the channels, hey, how you doing on Workspaces? The market is, how you doing on Workspaces? You know what I mean? It's they're able to build this technology slowly, methodically, correctly, without pressure, without, time as a limitation. In the meantime, why did we deploy Citrix in the first place, or Citrix-style technologies? Because we want the app where the data is, right? Or at least that's the best scenario for it. And that's definitely the reason we did it in the early days. So DAS is great if your data is in the cloud, right? Of course, there's hybrid, but that's just there's a whole different conversation about hybrid DAS,
right.
But that's really just getting you to the cloud, right? But what's going to happen is one day we're all going to wake up and realize that, hey, all of our data is in Amazon, all of our data is in Azure, right? And Azure will end up with Citrix, doing the Citrix Zen Apps and desktop stuff, which probably by then will be called Microsoft, and Workspaces will be a real player. And I'm really excited about it. Just yesterday, I think they announced 4-monitor support for Workspaces.
I'm with you, Dave. I think that certainly from a design and an architecture standpoint, it makes complete and total sense when you think about just the operations and the support and the the care and the attention that the larger players can put forth. But at the same time, you can bring your own image, you can bring your own apps, right? So you get a lot of the same flexibility, a lot of the same capability, but you get to divest yourself of dealing with all of the other stuff.
It totally makes sense. It's a better way to compute when we're ready for it. The enterprise is going to take a little bit of time to use DAS type of solutions. Their DAS is called their data center, right? But the smaller boys, especially the extremely small or the new companies, they should be doing DAS today. And then, as they're able to get the data up there, it starts making sense, right? The cloud is not cheap, though. Anyone that says the cloud is cheap is lying, or lying to themselves, which is almost worse. But it's not necessarily cheap, but there's a return on investment there. And there's some benefits from it.
Absolutely. And, you talk about 4-monitor support, and you talk about, sort of resources up there. So we're continuing to extend and push forward with our NVIDIA relationship, and between, NVIDIA and Amazon. So, for your listeners who may not be aware, NVIDIA now has grid support in Amazon DAS.
Yep.
so there are not only tiers for what your VM individual VM resource requirements may be. There's now a tier to support virtual GPU for an Amazon delivered desktop or workspace. Pretty exciting stuff. Where we fit into that market, specifically with respect to Stratusphere, is we're working with Amazon in the field, for example, and we've recently created a sizing or tiering guide. So we have the ability to go into an environment to do what might have traditionally been thought of as an assessment, but it's not specifically designed now to figure out what server infrastructure and storage infrastructure you need to build. It's designed more specifically to say, where are all of your individual PC users based on consumption, based on applications, based on what we trended and measured? What size DAS tier are they going to best behave in? Because, ultimately, and you said, from a cost standpoint, it's not necessarily cheaper, when you look at the raw dollar figures. But I think when you fully burden the cost, meaning what's the acquisition cost, what's the setup cost, what's the unboxing cost, what's the imaging cost, what's the help desk cost, right? In addition to the capital expense of buying the device, et cetera, et cetera. When you look at that, the devil in the details comes from, some of the nuance of, if you put all of your 2 gig users in 4 gig images, sure, they'll be happy, but you're overspending every month, right? You're delivering more than is necessary. And the flip side of that is, equally bad. You put a 4 gig user in a 2 gig image, and they're just never going to be happy.
Yep.
So understanding sort of that level of detail and knowing where, as a consumer, right, at the corporate level, what does your SLA need to be to? How do you have a hard conversation with an Amazon to say, hey, these aren't performing, and here's why? Stratusphere is going to give you that visibility to make sure that all of the key players in this entire environment are kept accountable to what they need to own and kept accountable to what they need to be responsible for. So it's been a really great and interesting ride for us from a visibility standpoint to be able to leverage Stratusphere as a not just a migration tool, but a validation tool, an ongoing, I said it before, it's a life cycle management, a life cycle visibility tool for the user. And as you choose to move your users from physical to cloud, you can't outsource the visibility. You still need to maintain some control of that information that ultimately is going to help you to define, are my users happy? Am I getting what I pay for? Am I making sure that I'm managing user expectations appropriately and minimizing risk in the desktops that I deliver? Whether it's a workspaces desktop, whether it's a physical PC or an on-premises virtual desktop, at the end of the day, the user doesn't care, right? They sit in front of a keyboard, they sit in front of a monitor. They may not even know where it is, but they still have expectations that need to be met. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, it really is. It's very interesting. I mentioned 4-monitor support because it seems to me like every single week Amazon's coming out and announcing something else. Like you mentioned, NVIDIA HIPAA compliance was not long ago. I read the Amazon blog religiously, and also the Liquidware blog and the NVIDIA blog. But it amazes me. I think I love what you guys are doing. You do some neat stuff on the Profile Unity side with Amazon Workspaces too, and I believe so, right? And
absolutely.
It's cool.
And I certainly don't want to cover any ground, but we're in the context of the Amazon conversation. One of the things that's of extreme benefit there is we can allow you to move and migrate between different Amazon workspace profiles. So maybe you started with 4 gig profiles and you found that you're never using them. In the native Amazon world, it would mean having to recompose or rebuild that desktop. With Profile Unity, we can actually help you to migrate so that you don't have to start over with your image. You don't have to start over with those tiers. You can simply migrate your users. So from a user perspective, very little disruption, right? From an end IT perspective, significantly less work.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. I get all excited, as you can tell, when the topic of Amazon comes up on workspaces, and I think the leader out there and helping them is you guys right now, from the Stratusphere side and the Profile Unity side. It's really amazing. So it's something for the guys out there listening to. If you can, it's a viable solution today, but definitely keep your eyes on it because it's only going to get better. And when I say it, I mean Amazon and the folks at Liquidware are right there with them. It's just really phenomenal stuff. I love it. As you can tell, I get all excited. So we're done, I think. But I'll throw back at you if there's anything we left out. Please feel free to speak now or forever hold your peace. How's that sound?
No, I like it. I'm good. I want to thank you for having me on again. I always appreciate chatting. I always appreciate kind of talking about the market and what's going on. And hopefully I've educated some folks on Stratusphere and where we're going and how we're helping to support some of these exciting changes and some of these exciting evolutions that are happening in this day and age. So Doug, thank you so much. And to all of you listening, thank you so much.
No, Kevin, the pleasure's all mine. I've always been a big fan of what you guys do. So, a long time. Well, since the company was founded. So, David and Tyler are heroes of mine, and Kevin Smith is Kevin Smith. There's a new one. Now we have the Jasons and we have Kevin Smith.
There you go.
Jason Smith is a Kevin Cooke, Jason Smith. So, is just a great guy.
I'm a Kevin Smith fan too. So
yeah, I do too. You can't go wrong with Kevin Smith, can you?
You can't. There's nothing wrong with Silent Bob.
No.
So yeah, I'm down with that.
Dogma, they're all good movies. So what's really fun is, we'll digress for a second. Have you ever watched him when he does the college tour stuff?
I listened to early on. He and I think his producer Scott Mosier were doing a podcast called Smodcast. And I listened to those guys for a few years. In fact, it was sort of my guilty pleasure when I mowed the lawn.
Nice.
I listened to a Smodcast while I was mowing the lawn. But I haven't listened to him in years, and I know he started doing sort of the college tour on the heels of that kind of sort of open dialogue. There's a TV show I think he does with all of his comic book pals that's sort of a similar exercise. But I'm not a comic book guy, but certainly I like Kevin Smith's storytelling, so I'm a big fan of many of his movies.
Yeah, he tells a story about meeting Prince, and so you guys, Google this one, and Kevin, Google this. Just search Kevin Smith, Prince, and it's about 20 minutes, and it is one of the funniest stories. And like you said, his storytelling, the way he tells the story second to none. And Prince was definitely a very interesting person, to say the least. And Kevin Smith explains it in great detail and all the wackiness. So I've turned so many people onto that. But first, head over to liquidware.com and then save Prince and Kevin Smith for later.
Love it.
Later. Kevin, thank you so much, and we'll go ahead and call this an episode. Sound good?
Sounds good, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you. Okay, that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. Guys, definitely check out what Liquidware is doing, both on the Stratusphere side and the Profile Unity side. Really neat stuff. I really like these guys. Not only do they have great products, but they're really great people. So if you see them at a show, stop. And if you know Bas Vendicam, he joined also, the guy that writes the really amazing Citrix books. So one of the smartest guys in the Citrix community, he just joined Liquidware. So, I mean, they're even great getting good people, and Bas would not go to a second-rate company. So that right there is testament to what these guys are doing. So definitely check it out. And check out the Amazon stuff, too. Wow. I am so impressed. I need to bring them online sometime. Amazon, you listening? Come on the show. So I'll call you. Don't listen. Amazon lives in their own little world. But if they do listen, come on the show. So, okay. On that note, guys, thank you so much for listening to DABCC Radio. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you guys, because without you, well, I'm just sitting here talking to myself. So I don't want to do that. I'm not that crazy. So please, if you like it, tell a friend. That's how we grow. Head on over to www.dabcc.com for the latest and greatest cloud, virtualization, Liquidware, Amazon, end-user computing, security, AI, IoT, basically IT news and support resources. So, what do I say? We also have mobile apps, so head over to your favorite app store, be that Google or Amazon, and search for Apple, and search for DABCC and have at it. So, what else do I say? But thank you very much for listening to the ABCC.
Can you say DABCC?
DABC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again, DABCC?
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.